This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you may have missed this morning, but we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 30th of March 2021, and I am 2J.
I am JM.
And I am Miss K. Again, in case you missed today's headlines, here they are. Daily Nation revealed Al-Shabaab plot against Kibaki and Raila.
Wow.
The Standard, heartbreak for Obamas. And The Star, fresh BBI splits hit UHURU Raila referendum plan.
Wow.
Something wrong with that headline.
It's a bit of a tongue twister.
It really is. Anyway, I would like us to talk a little bit off topic. No, it's not off topic, it's still on the headline, but I think it's on the upper third of the Standard. And it's about the Jubilee rebels. It says that 6 senators allied to DP Ruto on the verge of losing their seats. JM, what do you have to say about this?
Yeah, that's right. So 4 days ago, the Political Parties Disputes Tribunal threw out an application filed by nominated Senator Isaac Mwaura, who sought to bar the Registrar of Political Parties from implementing the Jubilee Party's decision to expel him and 5 other nominated senators over indiscipline. But today, the High Court stayed that execution, by the Political Parties Disputes Tribunal. But even if they have, I want to say that the party, Jubilee Party, will still have its way on this one.
Yeah.
And this ought to be a lesson for Jubilee Party rebels, especially those who are nominated and those who are from Gema. Do not follow William Ruto blindly.
Yeah.
He will use you and dump you. And so let me explain by way of a story about an old dying toad and a young vibrant rat. So the older the toad got, the more mischievous he became. One day he tied his leg tightly to the rat. Bound by friendship, the rat did not notice. And so they went around looking for food as usual. Once fed, the tired toad convinced the rat to go with him to the pond where he lived. When they arrived, the toad jumped into the water, dragging the poor rat inside. And unable to swim, the rat died. The toad did not notice. In fact, it turns out that he did not actually care at all. Shortly afterwards, a hawk emerged from nowhere. It was attracted by the dead floating rat. It grabbed the dead rat and flew away. When it arrived at its nest, it was pleasantly surprised to find that it had landed a 2-for-1 offer. It had both the dead rat and the old dying toad, and it proceeded to eat them both promptly. The remarkable thing about this story is just how incredibly short-sighted the old dying toad and the young vibrant rat are. They're totally lacking in common sense, both of them. They're both blind. In this story, the young vibrant rat are the Jubilee rebels, the Millicent Omangas and co, and the old dying toad is William Ruto. Both are none the wiser. The rebels have hitched their wagon onto a slow-punctured politician, and William Ruto thinks he can make himself the president in 2022. He still thinks he's at the top of the political food chain, though he's not. The hawk, of course, is Uhuru Kenyatta, and once he swoops in to settle political scores, you don't want to get caught up as collateral damage.
Oh, wow.
So these Jubilee rebels, they should think, more carefully about
Much
the moves
more
that they're making.
Do not bind yourself inextricably to someone who can ruin your political fortunes. I think that's the moral of the story.
But also the beauty of the story is you think that they're just 2 players, and then a hawk that is stronger and better than you sweeps in out of nowhere and just, demolishes everything you thought was true.
Absolutely.
I do agree. Let's go a little off topic for a moment and discuss
Devolution.
Devolution.
I know. So today I just decided not to read the headlines, and instead I want to remind Kenyans about the purpose and functions of devolution. Why? Because as a country, our collective memory is embarrassing. We complained for years about the centralized nature of our government, a government that created strong middlemen, partisan politics, and an imbalance of regional development. We asked for devolution, and we got it. Now some M-Pesa pastors and low-grade talking heads, that shall not be named, are bullying the president for solutions that our county governments ought to solve.
Yes.
First, I think as a nation, we need to acknowledge that accountability for responding to COVID-19 is complicated. But very simply, devolution is about the transfer of power by a central government to a local or regional administration.
That's right.
And every year, the national government distributes 316 billion shillings to our 47 counties. And at the heart of it, decentralization is expected to facilitate cross-sector development tailored to local needs. So if your county depends on tourism, give a tax relief to resorts and hotels. If you're an agricultural hub, waive land fees. Decentralization gives county governments the executive authority of self-governance to make decisions that affect them. So let us take some recent examples from Machakos and Kiambu, two counties that are under the current lockdown. The governor of Machakos, Alfred Mutua, earlier this week instituted a range of measures to cushion the residents of Machakos, and this was against the economic impact of COVID-19. So he issued a 100% waiver on land rates and land arrears. He reduced transport levy costs by 50% and non-payment of fees on vegetable vendors, boda and tuk-tuk operators. This is decentralization at work. As a county governor, you have executive powers over certain policy matters in your county.
That's right.
Acting on it and ensuring the economic well-being of your constituents is the mandate of your job. In fact, if your county officials aren't doing anything, something is terribly wrong.
Yeah.
I agree.
My second example comes from Kiambu, that recently invested in installing oxygen in bulk in its hospitals. So while other counties spend billions of shillings buying ventilators, Kiambu chose to prioritize oxygen, and this has been game-changing. The county structure realized early on that oxygen could spare people from ventilators and possibly death. So Governor James Nyoro made a decision that was decisive. So I use these examples both to celebrate these counties for making responsible action,
Yes.
but also to highlight the importance of our devolution system. Distributing 316 billion shillings annually to 47 counties is there to support county-level goals. Not only are these counties semi-autonomous, but they then have the funds to back up those decisions that they make. So what is my point? Sure, blame the president for refusing to further cushion the economy and institute tax relief schemes. But then I ask you, what has your county done for you? Just like containing COVID is a shared responsibility between citizens, running the country is also a shared responsibility at both the national and the county level. So go call your MP, senator, or governor and ask them what plans they have for you during this period.
I do agree that with that notion, please make your devolved leaders accountable.
You
do have that
blame.
right.
Exactly.
Yeah. You know, once devolution happened, there's a sense in which the political responsibility, is still being attributed mostly to the national government and not to the counties. And yet they've been given so much power, so many functions, and so much money as well. So we need some sort of education to bridge that knowledge gap.
Definitely.
And political responsibility needs to be, that burden needs to be taken in good proportion between the national and county government.
Exactly, in proportion. Very true.
Yeah.
I do like that notion, proportional responsibility.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, that's what needs to happen.
Let me talk a little bit about the Star, the fresh BBI splits hitting Uhuru and Raila. That headline is still very off.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Star is telling us that there is a clash, or rather there has been a clash between the senators and the MPs on the joint parliamentary committee that is reviewing the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020. And the issue in question is whether or not Parliament can make recommendations to amend the BBI bill. Senators, led by their chairperson, Okongo Omogeni, are pushing to amend the Constitution. And the National Assembly, led by Muturi Kigano, want to ring-fence the bill from any form of amendments. Therefore, Parliament is at some form of impasse.
Yeah.
But the issue there is not new. And we too have asked, is Parliament's role in the BBI process ceremonial? Is Parliament simply a conveyor belt? Or does Parliament have, as our constitutional lawmaker, have the mandate to make reasoned and logical changes to the BBI bill? As we have argued in the past, if the drafters of our constitution had intended that Parliament were to play the role of rubber stamp in the referendum process, they would have expressly said so in the text of the constitution.
That's right.
And in the absence of any rule to the contrary, Parliament is the arm of government that is dedicated to making and changing law. So, should Parliament make amendments to the BBI bill? I think so. But I will issue a warning to Parliament. Remember that our current Katiba Mbichi is as a result of the actions of your predecessors.
Yes.
In an infamous trip to Naivasha, what has now become the Constitution of Kenya 2010 was mutilated with the removal of the proposals for a hybrid system of government with a Prime Minister and 2 Deputy Prime Ministers. Sound familiar? Anyway, the Spanish philosopher George Santayana, as quoted by Winston Churchill, said that those that fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it.
That's right.
Let us not repeat the sins of the past.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, we have a 3-part criteria that we use to judge the headlines for you. We ask ourselves 3 questions. Is the headline topical or speculative, repetitive or groundbreaking, and thoughtful, or just plain lazy? I think I'll toss out the Star and the Daily Nation.
Yes, I agree.
But I will retain the Standard. Heartbreak for the Obamas. Mama Sarah Obama has unfortunately passed away at the age of 99 years. I do say that that is a good, long life.
Yes.
And she was the step-grandmother of former US President Barack Obama. Our hearts and our prayers go out to your families, and we pray that you will be comforted. That is our winning hope.
Yes.
And now on to our final thought. But before we get there, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit the notification button and the like button.
Wow, a lot of instructions.
Yes, follow them.
And now our final thought. This week is inspired by the stories and myths around Easter. And today we're going to actually begin with the origins of Easter. So Easter, as we all know, is an annual celebration observed throughout the Christian world. However, there are absolutely no Bible verses that authorize or endorse the keeping of this tradition. Further to that, the Bible does not mention anything about Easter eggs, Easter baskets, Easter bunnies, or even Lent, the 40 days that we practice, abstaining from something. The date of Easter, when the resurrection of Jesus is said to have taken place, changes from year to year. And the reason for this variation is that Easter always falls on the first Sunday after the first full moon following the spring equinox. I will preface all of this information by saying that a lot of these seasons and dates are observed by the West, so the northern hemisphere, not a lot of the African or southern hemispheres. But most major holidays have some connection to the changing of the seasons, and this is especially obvious in the case of Christmas. The New Testament gives no information about what time of the year Jesus was born. Many scholars believe, however, that the main reason that Jesus' birth came to be celebrated on December 25th is because that was the date of the winter solstice according to the Roman calendar. So since the days following the winter solstice gradually become longer and less dark, it was the ideal symbolism for the birth of the light of the world, as stated in the book of John. Again, these are seasons that we do not experience in Africa. So when I talk about winter, you have to bear with me. And the case is similar with Easter, which falls in close proximity to another key point in the solar year, which is called the vernal equinox, which happens around March 20th, when there are equal periods of light and darkness. So for those in the northern hemisphere, the coming of spring is often met with excitement, as it means an end to the cold days of winter. But one theory that has been put forward is that the Easter story of crucifixion and resurrection is symbolic of rebirth and renewal, and retells the cycle of the seasons and the death and return of the sun. So spring here also means the coming back to life of plants and trees that have been dormant for winter. as well as the birth of new life in the animal world. So given the symbolism of new life and rebirth, it was only natural to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus at that time of the year.
Yeah.
As for the naming of this celebration as Easter, it seems to go back to the name of a pre-Christian goddess in England. Her name was Eoster, we'll put it on the screen, who was celebrated at the beginning of spring. But whether it's observed as a religious holiday, commemorating the resurrection of Jesus Christ, or a time for families in the Northern Hemisphere to enjoy the coming of spring, I think we here at the Fifth Estate celebrate Easter because God lived the life we should have lived, and he died the death that we deserved to die.
Yeah.
And he did all of that just so that we could live.
That's
Couldn't
right.
agree with you more. But I'd like to delve into the customs and symbols that are most associated with Easter. The Easter Bunny and Easter eggs.
Yes.
And spoiler alert, both the Easter Bunny and Easter eggs have nothing to do with the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. They are pagan in their origin. In fact, their inclusion in the holiday has nothing to do with has everything, to do with the changing understanding of children. So parents and all of you who are children, you should know that prior to the 17th century, children were rarely the center of attention. In fact, a historian called Stephen Nissenbaum writes that children were lumped together with other members of the lower orders in general, especially servants and apprentices, who are generally young people themselves. Childhood was simply a stage where you prepared to be an adult. But from the 17th century onwards, there was a recognition of childhood as a time of life that should be joyous and fun. And this discovery and the resulting idealization of childhood had a significant effect on how Easter and other holidays such as Christmas are celebrated. It's at this point that Easter eggs and the Easter Bunny become important. So decorated eggs had been a part of Easter festivals since medieval times because they symbolized new life and rebirth. But in the 17th century, a German tradition of an Easter hare, like Sungura, Kaka Sungura, if you guys remember, bringing eggs to good children during Easter was introduced. And hares and rabbits were always associated with the rituals performed in the spring because of their remarkable fertility. No comment. But because of the children, the wild and naughty hare was replaced by the more docile, domestic and child-friendly rabbit. And I think that the endurance of these traditions is a ruse to get your money.
Yes.
These holidays are commercialized, requiring you to buy chocolate eggs and bunnies and all the other goodies associated with the holiday.
Yeah.
And as Easter approaches this year, when you see Easter eggs on offer, you'll know where they came from and that they are distinctly un-African and un-Christian.
So true. Thank you for that history. I didn't know that. Yeah.
So let me talk a little bit about a symbol that now actually has to do with Christianity that we even liken to Jesus. And this is the Easter lamb. And so of all the Easter symbols, the lamb is probably the most strongly associated authentically with the Christian tradition. So the lamb comes from the Jewish Passover, we're told, which has some sort of connection with Easter. I think some of the early Christians decided to peg Easter around the time of the Passover, where each family killed a lamb as a sacrifice. When Christ became the Passover lamb for everybody, the lamb became a symbol for his sacrifice. And we've got two verses in the Bible to attest to this. John verse 1, verse 29, which says, "The next day John saw Jesus coming toward him and said, 'Look, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world.'" And the 1 Peter 1, 18 to 21, which says, "For you know that it was not with perishable things such as silver or gold that you were redeemed from the empty way of life handed down to you from your ancestors, but with the precious blood of Christ, a lamb without blemish or defect. He was chosen before the creation of the world, but was revealed in these last times for your sake. Through him you believe in God, who raised him from the dead and glorified him, and so your faith and hope are in God." Very strong symbol there, the lamb, and how and the meaning of it, and what Jesus did to die for us. The scriptures also say, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son to redeem our souls. But another symbol we have here, this one has been given by men, as the Easter lily, which again, this is pretty much for the Northern Hemisphere. So we're told that throughout the years, painters and sculptors have used the white Bermuda lily to symbolize purity and innocence as well. And then a new tradition that is emerging in some parts of the world is that people like to acquire new items of clothing during the Easter break.
Oh my God.
Not Christmas?
Not Christmas, or in addition to Christmas. I'm sure this is soon going to be commercialized as well. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I think I like what you said in the beginning, that this is the only authentic symbol. I think that of the lamb. Because I think there are very few of these symbols that you actually find written anywhere in the Bible or any religious text. So the lamb is one I can get behind. Yeah,
you can get behind the lamb. It's also interesting to note, and I think everyone should read about something called the 310. In the year of our Lord AD 325, Constantine, who was the Caesar, I think I could put it, of Rome, held a council. It was called the Council of Nicaea, and it was in that council that he made very many they had deliberations on contentious issues in the Christian religion. Because as you know, Constantine was the first person who did the transition from pagan beliefs within the Roman Empire to the Christian beliefs within the Roman Empire. And that transition is where we get a lot of this mixture of pagan beliefs and Christian beliefs into one. And that particular council is where they sought to answer those contentious issues and to pick things like when Easter should be, what particular day, and that's why Easter is on Sunday. Monday is just because it was Sunday, just so you know.
So you get a public holiday.
So you get a public holiday because the holiday fell on Sunday, but those things were picked, and as many other contentious issues in the Christian faith were addressed at that Council of Nicaea in 325 AD.
Wow.
Anyway, let's leave you on that thought. Think about Easter and other holidays and question where they came from and find it out. Today we had a winning headline from The Standard, heartbreak for the Obamas. Again, our thoughts go to the family of the Obamas during this hard and difficult time. And I'd like to leave you with a quote from a gentleman called Alan Watts. It's about ignorance. And it says, most people not only feel comfortable with their ignorance, but they are hostile to anyone who points it out. I do hope you're not hostile to us in our comments today. Don't forget again to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find us on your TV screens. We are on Pan Free to Air, GoTV and Star Times. Have a great day.